Today we have with us the Ambassador of Mozambique to the United Nations, Mr. Comissario Afonso, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
If we can start with first question, please. It's first time in Mozambique's history to be in the council and also to have the presidency of the council. Could you please share with us what did you learn and what were the biggest challenges throughout this month?
Uh, this month was very challenging. Um, One of the reasons why it was challenging was our own agenda that we set for the month of March. We had an agenda full of important topics to deal with. If you wish, we can start with some signature events. On the 7th of March, we had an event entitled Peace, Security, and Women. Then it followed the security sector reform. Thirdly, we had terrorism and counter-terrorism and the fight against extreme violence. And finally, of course, we had this nexus, peace, security, and development, specifically related to Africa, to the African continent.
If I can follow up on that, as you mentioned, you also focused a lot on African issues, including the Security Council visit to DRC Congo. How do you think the Security Council was helpful in dealing, especially with African issues? Do you feel like we moved forward on this?
Yes, I think that the council took important steps in dealing with the African issues. Even before Congo, we had to deal with the issues of South Sudan and Sudan, Somalia, uh, and others. Uh, of course, we had this important trip to the DRC. It was important because we wanted this council to be well informed about the status of the conflict in the DRC. In this connection, we were able to meet President Tshisekedi, the Prime Minister, his cabinet ministers, civil society, governors of the Kivu North in Goma City. So we had this dialogue with the living forces of the country of DRC. And we left some important messages on behalf of the council. One, that it is important to have in mind the need for a negotiated settlement of conflicts. And this requires the goodwill of everyone. And secondly, that it is important to follow the understandings, regional mechanisms that were set. There is a process, a dialogue process of Nairobi, of Rwanda, of the region. So we advised the government and the forces, political forces in DRC, to pay attention to the need for dialogue. And thirdly, we also uh, left them with the message that look, there are other processes, peace processes in Africa that you need to pay attention to. And in that case, Mozambique, as president of the council, we gave them our humble experience. And at the heart of our experience in Mozambique is the will to negotiate, to make compromise, and to pay attention to other actors in the conflict.
Yes, I remember you mentioned this during your press conference, right? That actually Mozambique has experience with many battles for your liberty, and that we have to pay attention to negotiations. That on the other hand, you put more emphasis on talks and the parties being ready talking. Is that correct?
Absolutely, absolutely correct. And this is the message also we have been voicing here in this chamber of the Security Council, that unilateralism does not solve problems. You need always to have a dialogue, to speak to others, and to listen. More important, to listen to others. So this is our own experience that we have been defending even here in the chamber of the Security Council.
That's very impressive, I have to say. Ambassador, if I can ask you, what advice would you give maybe to other future non-permanent members of the Security Council if they wish to make an impact, like, for example, you did during your presidency?
Number one, to have a very clear agenda. This is the requirement number one. And number two, to listen to other members of the council. So you cannot, in the Security Council, you can be only effective if you listen. If you do not listen, it will be a monologue. And the monologue is not a strategy that is inscribed in the Charter of the United Nations. In the Charter of the United Nations, you have a peaceful settlement of conflict, negotiated settlement of conflict. All this requires capacity to listen and to have dialogue. And number three, you need to be prepared to hard work. To preside over the Security Council is a very tough endeavor. So you need to have enough staff and be prepared to work day and night, and to be prepared to work not 24 hours, but 25 hours a day. So this is the advice that I would give to incoming members.
So a lot of coffee and some sugar, right?
Yes, yes, a lot of. But even with coffee, you sometimes you fall asleep. So yes, you will need you need. But it is a very important cause. It is a cause for humankind. It is a cause of international community. It is a cause that it is worth working for.
Thank you. And I have to ask, Ukraine is now taking over many debates in the United Nations, including the Security Council. Do you think that the Security Council has helped to advance this crisis closer to the peace? And you mentioned that Security Council members should listen to each other. Do you feel like they are doing that
No,
actually?
no, not at all. Not at all. When we started in January in this chamber debating the issue of Ukraine, Mozambique was uh, one of the very few, if not the only one, who defended and negotiated a solution to the conflict in Ukraine. And we were alone, almost alone in voicing this position. Why did we do so? We did so on two grounds. The first ground, because our own constitution says that uh, it is important to give primacy to peace. Number two, that we can only resort to uh, war in case of legitimate self-defense. And number three, that whenever you face this situation, you need to follow what the charter says: negotiated settlement, peaceful solution. But this is not just our position alone. It is also a position that is enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations. So we were very confident. Now, at the end of March, we hear many voices saying the same. That, well, we need to negotiate. Some are saying it with the nuances that, well, it is, but almost everyone at this moment in the chamber here around the table are saying that we need to find a negotiated settlement of the Ukraine conflict. A final comment on the Ukraine issue is that conflict begets conflict. So this is what I call a trap of conflict. Exactly. Once you have, you are entangled in the trap of conflict, your reasoning, your way of thinking will always be around conflict. But we need to get free from this logic of conflict and see beyond what is contradictory. And I was telling you, a colleague of ours around this horse-shaped table that, look, if at the beginning the parties, I mean Ukraine and the Russian Federation, or Ukraine and other entities, were able to sit down and discuss, the result would be less destruction, would be less losses of lives, would be less bloodshed. So you compare what with what is happening now on the ground. There's destruction and deaths, and That is, I think it is in the present era, uh, with the people who are rational. I think it is just sheer nonsense to have war and not to be prepared to negotiate.
That's very smart what you are saying, sort of taking the distance view and rationalizing the whole situation. If I can have last question, you abstained on the Nord Stream project, the resolution by Russia. At what stage you felt like it would make sense to actually have UN-led investigation or get the UN involved?
No, the logic of our abstention was very simple. That the Nord Stream uh, resolution was a product of a conflict behind it. This is a conflict Russia-Ukraine. So it would make no sense for us to vote in favor. Of course, we would favor an investigation whenever these developments happen. But it would have made no sense to our own people, to our government, that we could vote in favor or vote against when from the start our position has been of abstaining in the matter of the conflict that opposes Ukraine to Russia. So this is the rationale. Otherwise, we do not favor such a situation when you destroy an infrastructure with the very serious environmental consequences. So we cannot favor such a thing. But when you come to the voting, so we looked at the conflict behind it. This is the rationale.
It makes total sense, Ambassador. If I may ask on grain deal, which was recently extended by Russia and Ukraine and Turkey, what impact it actually has on Mozambique, in your opinion? I know you once answered you view it positively, but you would prefer peace over grain. But still, would you mind commenting on how do you see it impacting Mozambique?
Yes, it has a great impact. We don't we don't see the ships moving from one place to another, but we see that the bread is more expensive. We see that the costs of our other products are very expensive that derive from the grain, and so the cost of life is higher, and it bites our stomachs all over all over Mozambique, and this is the reason why we favored. But we said time and again here in the council, you don't have humanitarian solutions for humanitarian problems. There is no such thing. You can only have political solutions for humanitarian problems. So you can't solve humanitarian problem with the humanitarian solution. This is not possible. So what we are saying at the heart is that we need to solve the problem that is at the origin of the conflict there. So if we are able to solve it, then I think that we will have a lot of grain coming from Russia, from Ukraine. I don't know where the grain comes from, and we will have a lot to feed. But we need a political solution for it.
Thank, thank you, Ambassador. That's a very wise answer, I have to say. Um, if I may also ask, I looked into your bio. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you studied here in the United States at the Columbia University. I was curious, how would you compare the education system at Colombia and in Mozambique in terms of diplomatic education and what a good diplomat means for you?
Um, Education, I studied law in Mozambique also. But I also studied a little bit philosophy. Education in Mozambique is very good. At Columbia, it's excellent. so I'm very happy with the background that I was able to get, assisted by, of course, my parents, my government. So, but Colombia was not the only place. I also studied the conflict resolution in Uppsala. This is Sweden university. So yeah, but look, what is important is not the university or the place where you study. It is your own engagement, your own commitment to the study that is important. So anybody from a small university, even here in the United States, you have brilliant authors, brilliant professors, brilliant students coming from a smaller university, not the Ivy League university. What is important is uh, how committed, devoted you are to your studies. And I wish I could have studied in Russia, in Moscow.
That's very good. Yeah,
Yes.
you can still do it.
Yes, I can still, but if you give me a scholarship.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Okay, okay.
But Ambassador, what if you may tell me like what a good diplomat is for you, like good diplomacy or a good diplomat, what skills does he should he have?
Yeah,
Because you really.
I would start with the studying. A good diplomat has to a very hard working student of issues, of topics, of problems, of dossiers. You need to read, to study, to understand, and to see the logic behind it. Because problems, conflicts, negotiations are not linear. They are complex. Look at the issue Ukraine-Russia. You can see, if you are a simplistic person, you can see, oh, Russia invaded Ukraine. But there is a long story behind it. Probably it started in 1990s when the Cold War was ending, uh, when there was an understanding that NATO would advance not 1 inch into the former eastern countries. But there are also other issues. So a diplomat, a good diplomat, needs to be able to read and 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 dig intellectually and understand what are the root causes of the conflicts. This is what is to be a good diplomat. There are other issues, of course. They say that to be a good diplomat, you also need to be a nice. It is not my case. I'm never nice, except for ladies. I am nice, but yeah, more than that, yeah, you need to have a very good education, a very good, but you need also to be able to interact with other uh, diplomats, with other people. You need to be able to engage in dialogue. you need to be first in identifying the interests that lie behind any topic, any issue. So you need to identify what are the interests, the real interests behind any issue and matter.
Thank you, Ambassador. And if I may, last question on will be on diplomacy. On social media and Twitter diplomacy, many ambassadors, including you, have Twitter accounts and put official statements, and also many journalists actually follow them. How do you view this social media, Twitter, influencing the traditional diplomacy, and how do you view using it and maybe taking news from that?
No, these are very important, these new social media. They correspond to the requirements of the modern era of way of doing international relations and of doing diplomacy. I must confess that we are a little bit behind, both in Mozambique and at our mission, in dealing with the social. We can't beat them. We would like to beat them. We can't do, but we are behind. So we have to accelerate. But we recognize the importance uh, of the modern social media, these Facebooks, these TikToks, all these things. But we are going to be better. Until the end of this year, we will be at the top. But no doubt it is extremely important.
But how do you consider it for news reading? Because these days there are many reports that people actually switch from television and newspaper to reading news from social accounts.
Exactly.
What do you think of that? Would you ever do it?
Yes, yes, definitely. Oh, I have these two advisors here before us, but we want to be able to be very present at with Facebook, as I said, TikToks, uh, so uh, and any other television. We would like to fill as much as possible these spaces so that we can transmit, to be able to transmit our messages, to reach as big a number as possible, not just Mozambicans, but the world over.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. It was great honor. Any last words from you, maybe to Russia? I know you already wished good luck. Any advice to Russia on their upcoming presidency as your
Yes,
last
yes,
concluding?
yes. Yeah, I did so here at the formal meeting to wish Russia and my friend Ambassador Vasily good luck. Uh, but Russia has a very experienced diplomats, so I have no doubt that they will outperform. But also to say that Russia and Mozambique, we have historic relations between our two peoples, and we are not going to forget the strong bonds of relations that we were able to build during our liberation struggle and following our independence. Uh, of course, at that time, we were united with the Soviet Union, but once the Soviet Union got fragmented, so we have attachment with all the former uh, socialist Soviet republics, including Ukraine and the others, Belarus. So our challenge is to continue perpetuating these historical uh, uh, bonds of relationship with our peoples and our governments.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. It was a great honor to speak with you. You're very wise. I'm really very grateful for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.